Forum. Take approval of the agenda and the minutes, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda in the minutes.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, aye,
Aye.
opposed? All right, motion will pass. Morning, Rich.
Morning. You'll probably notice the guys are out on 105 doing some maintenance stuff on this thing. We're trying to get things leveled up before the pavers come in. We're gonna be adding a little bit more rock to the shoulders. We're gonna be short anyway, so we're gonna try to get some material out there so we're not paying the contractor for more material when the project comes due. So you'll see that. I'm working with Mike Bodie on some spray equipment. We don't know where we're headed yet with that. He's found a pretty nice setup. It's got a front boom system that'll cover the whole right of way, but it's spending, need a truck to mount it. And it's what they were up in Minnesota looking just up to the neighbors there, and they've got contractors up there that do it for the state, and they've got a pretty nice, it's like a 1 ton, 1.5 ton truck with a tank system on the back with a injector system, so they're not pre-mixing everything. It's injected, so it's monitored, and then there's a spray system off the front that you can target certain parts of the right of way. It'll be probably 6 figures, but we're looking at just seeing what's out there. We don't have to buy a brand new truck. That'll make a difference, and he's trying to skinny down the system to make it affordable. So we're still looking at it. We haven't decided yet, but just trying to figure out what the needs and wants are.
Must be similar to what Servo's got. They got something kind of similar to that with a front mount system.
Could be. It
They
could
can-
be.
They drive along with, like, say, a dually of some sort.
Yep.
And spray the whole right of
Yep, and then
way.
he's got the tanks on the back, and so you
Mhm.
don't have to. So we're just looking into that yet. We haven't really kind of made up our minds. We're not gonna push too hard. We want to make the right decision, so.
Right.
Just so you guys know that. We got Jim Moody coming today for safety. I believe that's today after the meeting. And then one other thing we took quotes with Mitchell County for our county paint again. And paint prices are high just because of the whole, we're told paint prices are high. What we saw is we got 2 quotes in, and there was a heck of a spread between $19.95 a gallon and $33 a gallon. Which is,
Jesus.
the 1995 is about 7% higher. So we're looking at probably, I budgeted about $70,000 for paint for 2022. We're gonna be just under that, but I didn't add the spray bar, the stop bars and other symbols in. So we'll be right around the budget mark for that. So I think we're probably gonna award it just as based on the quote. So just to give you guys a heads up of where we're headed on the maintenance side of things on the paint. I don't know when they'll come in. We haven't really given the official go ahead yet, but I know that they've been, companies like the paint companies have been rationed, I guess. They aren't able to get more than what they need right now, and maybe things are starting to loosen up. I'm not sure.
Right.
Just to give you guys a heads up on that. We're still collecting data for our rock run yet, so we'll be getting that next few weeks. Questions, concerns? Do some rain.
Yeah, I did talk to Grafton though, so if you guys get that patcher out, just patch out a couple spots on
Yep.
390.
Well, right now, Mitchell County's got it. We stored it last year. We're there, and they're doing some maintenance on it, and they're gonna get it out and use it. We'll get it over here. We'll-
Okay, so yeah, just keep those couple spots in mind there, and then when it gets paved, that'll.
Yeah.
All get redone anyways.
Yep.
'Cause I believe that was next year possibly,
I gotta look at my,
right? I'm pretty sure it was next year.
everything's subject to change.
Yeah, it's, yeah, tentatively
Right.
on the list for next year, so.
Right.
All right, you guys got anything else for Rich?
I think so.
Okay, thank you, sir. Drainage,
Nothing.
nothing, regular claims. You guys look at those.
Yep.
Any questions or concerns?
Like motion to approve the claims.
Motion to approve the claims,
I'll second the motion.
second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. And payroll claims.
I'll make a motion to approve the payroll claims.
Right, there's a motion to approve payroll claims.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any reports? Sheriff's report. $4,200. Motion to approve the sheriff's report.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
I'll second.
Second, any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Any payroll eligibility or salary changes? Employee at the sheriff's office, dispatcher. Motion to approve the payroll eligibility for Justin Bruns.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye?
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Liquor license or cigarette license?
Nope.
Okay, manure management plan, Double K Farms, I think it was, right? On the eastern side of the county. Take a motion to acknowledge that manure management plan.
I'll make a motion to acknowledge that plan.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, manure management plan has been acknowledged. Redistricting commission, temporary redistricting commission. With the census, we've got to redistrict, correct?
Yep, and I got my person from Enos.
Don can have some.
Thank you.
And so,
Okay. Thank you.
oh, and it slips your mind and you forget to ask people, you just gotta take it on yourself. Yeah.
Okay, I'll get that ready before you guys go.
Walter, you go.
Oh, need a motion.
Take a motion to
Approve the,
approve.
And that's a resolution. So it'll be 2021-510.
The redistricting commission resolution,
I'll make a motion.
motion to approve that.
I'll second it.
There's a second. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, Lowberg,
Aye.
Smithy.
Aye.
Stone. Aye. Commission has been approved.
Thank you.
Board appointments.
Still working on it.
Still working on the alternate. Down to one, that's good. Safety committee, you guys are just having your meeting here,
Try to.
hopefully here after that. Aflac, determination on payroll deduction for employees. Last week we discussed Aflac deductions for employees, we got 13 or something like that. We need to decide we're gonna allow those at 13, and then anybody new would go with the county
Yes,
plan.
yeah. And I would recommend that we cap with those policies also, because otherwise we'll have to renewal, open enrollments and all that good stuff.
Okay.
So I would like it to just be capped at who has the existing policies right now.
So those are
So right now where they're at, they stay at.
Yeah,
And
And then
they
they
can't
can-
make changes. is what
No.
you're saying.
and then they can still have their payroll deduction,
they'll still receive the payroll reduction.
And get
Is
a
there-
group plan.
because they would lose their pre-tax, so.
Right, okay.
And I have a letter to that effect.
Basically, yeah. Aflac, for the employees that are in it, will continue to stay in it, and we will cap it there so that no one else can join. If they want to join the incentive, they'll join it with our group insurance through ISAC, which is our new care, or shouldn't say new, but our benefit partners group.
And it doesn't mean that they can't see Betty anymore, but it
Right.
just wouldn't be part of
Right.
the county's
Yep.
package.
And if they want anything new, they'll just have to go with the group benefit partners. All right, motion to approve the employees that are currently with Aflac can continue to stay on that with payroll deductions.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All right, the motion is second. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Thank you. It's a DPSON.
KUNDTS, I believe. Yeah, it's not an SEN. It's a SON.
March
sure.
9, 30. North Vetco. Melissa.
Morning. I sent an RFP in for another company to come to Manly. It's just initial questions, so hopefully we'll hear back. And then there's that Chap, Iowa at Bean and Bistro on the 25th. So what that is an SBDC rep will come and show small businesses how to have an online presence and then offer some benefits as far as to listing their items on shopiowa.com.
Yeah. Getting quite a bit of interest in that yet, or?
I haven't touched base with them yet. I was working on the RFP last week, but I will call SBDC and see how that is going.
That's the 25th, right?
Yep.
Sounds good. Questions or anything for Melissa?
So,
No?
no, I know.
Okay, easy day.
You bet.
All right, thanks, Melissa.
You bet.
Jason, probably not. Service, I don't believe there's anything new. Zoning commission update. Jeff on there. Where's he coming in today?
I just put that on there
Okay.
to,
Yeah, it's just a discussion.
Okay.
Hmm.
I know, I haven't been involved, and I know there's been some meetings, but I think they're planning on bringing us something next week, maybe.
So, I guess I got kind of concern on that we got 3 townships or 3 members and a zoning commissioner looking at countywide zoning, leaving the rest of the county out of it. There's been no, townships on my side and townships on your side.
All right.
They're not involved in these discussions, and that's not right. There needs to be either a committee put together to go along with that. I mean, I assume when they did the original zoning, that's kind of what it was. I don't know if there was a bigger committee at the time or not. That's
Right.
way before my time,
Mhm.
but it's just been those 3 center townships, and I don't think they have the right to dictate to the whole county what's going on. I mean, every township should be represented in this process if it's going to move ahead.
Right, I've talked with Jeff just a little on it, but I know they're using that group now just because it's already established, but I do agree there needs to be some representation throughout. I don't think, I mean, when it comes down to it, it'll come to us before it would go
Right.
anywhere else, and we need to, if they can get it to a point where if it's something that needs to progress forward, that NICOG has basically look over everything and not have to reinvent the wheel. And then if it's something that we want to push forward, then we can get the rest of the townships involved as well. I mean, I agree they need to be represented because it's going to affect everybody. But whether we need to start that conversation now or later, I mean,
Like I say, I guess I don't think they have any authority to move ahead of countywide zoning until there's been, action taken on them. I don't think we actually took any action requesting that.
it is,
Move forward, I guess. Maybe I'm wrong, but.
the way I understand, they're gonna come to us with a plan, basically,
Right.
of possibly going that direction.
Right.
Then it would come to us of whether we want to go that direction or not.
Right. But I don't know if that's really their responsibility either. I mean, they're not representing the whole county. They're only representing the townships that they're in.
Right,
So, I mean, I think if that's something that's gonna be moving forward, we need to take a look at that on a broader range and grant that authority that they would have as a county-wide to do this together. I mean, now you're gonna go in after the fact, you got a pre-written plan, you're gonna tell the other townships, well, this is already done, that's just, I mean, they should have input input in it from the beginning, if there's gonna be a change. And I mean, I don't know how much change or what's being written. I haven't
Right.
seen it. I haven't followed it either, to be honest, so.
And I haven't either, and I
I
don't know.
sat in on the videos.
Have ya?
Yeah,
I didn't realize they were happening until about the day they were happening, so
I just heard it through the grapevine,
Yep,
so I went
that's
on,
kind
I
of,
went online and found the videos and went and sat and listened to them.
so, and it wasn't on the agenda, so we couldn't all been on there anyway, so.
Right, yeah, and I,
Check it.
And they're not posting their agendas upstairs.
That's what I
either.
heard too, yeah, that they just did it online, correct? And I think by Iowa code, it does need to be posted in this building.
for zoning,
For any board,
Open meetings.
any open meeting that's county related.
They have been on the website.
They have been on the website, yeah.
Yep,
You
that
can
I
go
did hear.
find, you can sit in on them if you
Right.
want to.
Yep.
'Cause
Yeah, they're not
on the
closed
website.
meeting.
Yeah, they're not, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's on the website if you want
Yeah.
to go there and zoom in on them.
But I don't know the rules. I mean, I've always understood that ours at least have to be posted in the courthouse, just like EMA or conservation or any of those. They have to be posted here physically too, so they need to be keep mindful of that.
That's what was.
And also
done in the
Jeff,
past,
you know,
anyway.
Jeff is not our zoning director, so I mean, our zoning director should be in charge of this, that we hired a zoning director. He's the one that should be in charge of running these meetings and writing this plan, not Jeff.
yeah, it's just.
He's been at the meetings.
Yep, I understood that.
Yeah,
I know the first meeting, I think they had elections and Jeff was put as chairman and I'm not sure about vice. and all
Yeah,
that.
they did.
I think Matt is secretary. if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken.
Well, and what about him not being in one of the zone townships, if that's the way it was supposed to be at first?
Iowa code says, you have to have a majority within the zoned area. So if we had countywide zoning and you had 5 members on that board, 3 of the 5 would have to live within the rural area. You could have 2 city representatives or somebody from outside that area on that board if necessary. But you have to have majority live within that zone district. So technically, he is okay to be on that board. But that's, and the other 4 are within those townships, so it is majority that is in that area that runs that board, so. And that's just what I would.
How many public meetings do they have to have?
To do this planning, it's just a planning session.
Yeah.
No, I mean, once they figure out, get an idea of what they're thinking, then they gotta have public
Well, they'd have
meetings.
to have public hearings or waived, just as we do, I would assume, right?
I thought it said they had to have 2 of them in there, or 3 of them. 2 of them at least.
If we have a public,
Here, yeah.
yeah, and we're proposing something.
Yeah.
We're supposed to technically have 3 unless we waive.
Unless we
Yeah,
waive
unless
it.
it's a majority vote. Vote to waive.
You know,
waive
if
the-
the first meeting, nobody shows up, we usually waive. the second
As long as
or
it's
third.
posted properly
Yep.
and all through those hoops.
But I don't in this particular case, when they have a public meeting, nobody's gonna, there'll be plenty of people there.
Yeah, you don't think so?
Yeah, and I don't know, like, when this all got started originally, with the zoning, I'm assuming that all came from Nyakog or somewhere anyways. I don't know that there'll be any
Originally, I
huge,
don't know.
huge changes in it other than like we need to incorporate the rest of the county if it's gonna happen and whatever changes to the original zoning ordinances would be involved in that too, but
Right, well, I'd be under the assumption that writing this for the whole county, but proposing it would be countywide, not the center, just an update on the center.
Right.
Townships.
No, it's
Right.
countywide deals, the way they're proposing it.
mhm. And I know they've been talking with other groups as well to just try to decide which direction to go on this, but if worst case, it is a good update to everything and we can figure it out from there, but yeah. I agree, I do agree, we need some countywide representation on it.
I mean, because I've had a couple people say if they're gonna look at some kind of changes, they would be interested in being involved. I mean, and that'll be a tough one to get people for too, but.
Right.
But I had a couple that had some interest in, I think,
But don't already live in those townships.
yeah,
They live in-
yeah, one of them for sure was in my township. Talked to one of the guys. He was kind of, he named off a couple other names. He didn't know how much more he wanted to volunteer for.
Sure.
Yeah. But he
But I
was,
do agree that, the reason it got set up that way is because of the 3 townships on one that are originally zoned.
Mhm.
But I do agree that there should be people from other townships they could be involved in it, but I don't know whether that should be at a public meeting or what. Because part of it's being done for, you don't really want to say speed either, but we want to get it done within a reasonable amount of time
Right.
and get it done right.
But then that's like you say, if you're leaving out input from
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm
people
not,
that it's gonna
Yeah.
affect, that's not
I
right.
think it should be.
I mean, like I say, I don't foresee any big changes either, but you know, zoning is somewhat straightforward. so,
And for the most part, we gotta follow out of code through a good majority of it anyways. Unfortunately, that's what 90% of our job is just
And I don't know what other counties.
following Iowa
have
code.
Countywide zoning,
I
they
don't
only
either.
have a 4-member board or a 5-member board.
You could end up with the same people.
Right,
you know.
right. And I think I think there's maybe a minimum number. I know Board of Adjustment is 5. It must be 5. I think you
Has to be.
has to be 5.
Or better.
Yeah, and I think you can go more if you want to. Then that becomes a county decision, but you have to meet the standard of 5 stated by Iowa, so. Yeah, we can I can give Jeff a call and just say, hey, we have to try to find some people throughout other areas would be I guess our part of our job unless.
Yeah, we just need to find who wants to be on it.
Right. Right or wrong, I mean, it's just we need their input.
Right.
Because obviously, I think there's a little skew of how zoning works to some
Right.
people versus others, and if they see
Well, and
how
that's
it's
what it's-
laid out.
Important to have people on
Yeah.
there that either totally for it or against it, either way. I
Right.
mean, you should have people on there so they get a better understanding of it. If it's gonna come to us, it needs to have a better understanding for the entire county.
Because the way I see it is zoning protects people from certain things. It doesn't fight you for everything. It's not really another layer of government.
Tells you
It's
what you
just
can
that-
do and what you can't do.
It does protect you from certain things that may or may not be beneficial to you, but, and then it protects everybody. That makes it fair, and like I say, the ag exemption is, like I said, paragraph number 2 in the code, so I just think a lot of people don't know how it works. They just think it's something to stop them from doing something, and it's really not.
Should we come up with names for
Or you
Jeff
have
to say, hey,
Yeah,
you already got
Well,
some
it
in
would
mind,
be
right?
us that would approve those members anyway.
What's that?
It'd be us that would approve those zoning. If we were gonna expand that zoning board, and I imagine that would be an action too, we'd have to expand that zoning board. If we were gonna,
yeah,
I'm
Would
just
you,
guessing.
with some direction from NIACOG?
I would
do it,
have
or-
like some input from NIACOG myself on how this works. I think they need to be involved. They should be involved for legalities from the get-go. That things are being done right. I know I don't care to go ahead as a board without legal representation sometimes for certain things too. We have questions that we don't always get answered until afterwards.
Well, I definitely think about have legal representation.
Yep.
Whether it's even writing the zoning should
But
be
that's what,
read
yeah,
over. So
that's what
that-
NIACOG is.
well,
for.
that's the thing, is we'd have them obviously go through everything and,
Yep.
go that route, because that's not our cup of tea. It's not what we
No.
do.
We're not lawyers.
Right, right. So, and they did say that you would give us $50 an hour was the hourly rate they would go with, so if we needed any assistance, just they're not reinventing anything for us, they're just gonna go look through it all and see if it's originally built probably by NIACOG, running off state guidelines anyways, I wouldn't see too much of it being out of line, just any changes that are made from the original would just need to be looked over, but. Okay, I'll talk with Jeff then, and
So do you want us to come to the next board meeting with people that would be interested in being on it from our townships?
probably
That'd be a good idea.
could.
Okay.
I mean,
That's all I need to know.
wouldn't hurt. Cause then at least everybody's got representation on it,
And get people to volunteer.
so. Okay, that sounds good to me. If you can grab a couple from each area. I don't know, we'll get, yeah, so we have 12?
Yep.
12 townships?
And right now we've got Heartland, Kensett,
Danville. Brookfield.
Danville, Brookfield,
Mhm.
so them four are already done.
Yeah, four.
Follow the interstate.
Four, so we have.
Yeah, the only one that's out of it is Jeff is in Kensett, so you could find somebody
I'd
from
have to
Bristol
use-
and Fertile and,
I can get Bristol, Fertile, and Silver Lake. Townships I represent, and then actually Kansas too, so.
you know, I already got somebody that asked if he could be on from Grove, so.
No, talk with them and bring their names forward, I guess. And
Yeah, because the more people we get on it, the more it gets done right, as far as I'm concerned. More input on it,
Input
so it
for
doesn't
those-
go too far one way or too far the other way.
Input for the areas that it would be coming into if it
Yeah.
went that way. Go. Oh,
Resolution. Yeah. Redistricting.
Oh.
I got the names on there.
I'm gonna sign it.
That'll be official by May 15th,
Okay. Then we start the process.
hopefully a long time from now.
Okay.
We're not gonna.
This
see
is the
data
first,
for a while.
yeah, this is the first
Oh,
deadline, so.
and you actually got any direction yet?
I've sat in a couple of webinars and right now, you know, some people are going ahead without, there's data being released that's not tabular data.
Okay.
But most everybody's waiting for the tabular stuff to hit and that's, you know, the state's got to get to it first. So I'm thinking we're not gonna see it till September.
Okay.
So it's gonna be a rush to get it done.
You'll let those members know, like Donnie and those know that it'll be a little while.
Oh, sure.
Probably.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
We might want to get together just to have a little information meeting.
So we know what they're in for.
Right,
Okay.
be prepared, so when it does come down the line, that
Appreciate that.
will work out, so maybe make the process a little easier once we get to that.
The 2010 process was pretty smooth, so
Good.
we'll see what
I
this
don't
one
see
looks
most changes either, but
Yeah, everything just goes smooth.
like.
Short mark. Department head discussion, policies, COVID-19 policies, we're pretty much, that'll take care of. Is there anything else? Regarding that? Teresa just sent a chat, said she's recording the deed and resolution for time and Joe getting their property back.
Speaking of the property, do you guys know what they seeded the area to that we're gonna be mowing?
I can find out.
If it was lawn, because to me, it looks more like lawn grass than, I was kind of thinking it was
I
gonna be.
thought it was just
brome
some kind of temporary
or-
grass.
See, and that's what I thought, if it's gonna be brome or fescue or something like that, but
It's
it's
not
not
really
coming up,
good.
it looks more like
Bluegrass.
bluegrass.
Kentucky
If that's the
bluegrass.
case, that's like, I don't know that we can mow it just because we got, you know, we're cutting with our bat wing, so we're probably gonna mow it when it's 12 inches to like 6 inches.
Right.
And
It's a-
if it's bluegrass, it's only gonna get 6 inches and then lay
I
down.
haven't really looked that close, but all my grass, even my fescues are coming really slow right now. The new
Right.
fescues anyway, so,
I haven't actually got out and walked out,
Yeah,
I
neither.
just wondered.
okay.
I'll find out. I mean,
Yeah, if you
I'll
just
send
wanna,
Jason a message, actually.
just send him a message and then text me.
Yeah. Because, yeah, I'm not sure if there was a spec or what the spec was in that or not.
Temporary grass, he said. I didn't think it was like a bluegrass, like a long grass, because it's all gonna get tore up for construction anyway.
Right.
But when you go by like on Wheelerwood,
Yeah.
the ditch, what's been seeded in the ditch looks different than what's up on top, and that's where
Okay, yeah, they just redid that or whatever. it
Yeah.
is, so,
I mean, like I said,
Well,
I just wanted to let you know, so that way if it ends up being bluegrass, that we might need to find something else.
Well, and then when WCTA came in there, everything was pretty well seeded, and then they went through basically in the right of way along
Right.
the new road. And that's probably, who knows if that's the same grass or not as well.
I mean, we're a ways off from doing any clipping yet by any means. but
Right.
I just wanted to maybe get ahead of the thought if it was something like that.
Okay, I'll find out.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Just one reminder, next Tuesday, SIS is gonna be here, Homeland Security, for that physical assessment. So if you guys wanna be, I think that's,
Remind me.
10:30,
Larry?
they will be here. to whoever wants to be a part of that.
All right, 9 o'clock. Mark Crowell. Hear us on there?
Okay. Can you see me and hear me?
Gotcha.
Ken,
Awesome. Okay. Hey, thanks for letting me on here again today. I just wanted to get on and talk with the three of you here and in an open setting to get some feedback on updates that we've done there to the development agreement for the Worthwhile Wind Project. Just kind of to summarize here to start, we initially had kind of some core levels in there for setback distances, and then related it to dBA noise levels and flicker standards. Since then, and in conversations had just kind of between the last time that we were in this setting together, we had added some decommissioning language into that development agreement to make sure that it is reflective of what's covered in the landowner agreements as well. And then have some added before and after noise and flicker standards to our process as well. And then some language on kind of the back end of it that says this development agreement will go with any sort of future off-taker, future owner of the Worthwhile Wind facility. So a couple, I think pretty substantial upgrades to that agreement. I'd also send it along to Rich here just to make sure that he had a chance to review the road use aspect of it all, just to make sure that there's not anything that might have popped up from the process that's currently underway that you would maybe want to include. We'll kind of see how that goes, but once we get some more feedback on detailed design for road use and maybe locations later down the road, and kind of continue to come back and look at that in a little bit more detail.
To make some went through in the past, so.
Yeah. So, I think it's definitely taken some steps to get, some more folks to look at it, kind of have added information based on feedback from the area. And then just kind of wanted to talk briefly too about just a couple of points. One really is just kind of an overview and a reminder following on or coming behind the discussion of zoning. I know that folks are maybe waiting to a certain degree to see what those preliminary recommendations are from that exploratory board. We've been moderately engaged in the process, was able to speak briefly at the beginning of one of those meetings, and then it sent along some follow-up responses and clarifications to topics that weren't necessarily discussed in my allotted time period, and I can kind of send those along as well. But just a reminder that the development agreement is a way to protect the folks for the area of the Worthwhile project, given that it will be outside of the bounds of any type of zoning regulation here, in the future. Trying to be good stewards and good representatives of the project in the area by engaging in that, just to be able to provide information to that group. And we'll definitely continue to do that. But, for the Worthwhile project, just want to flag again that, the development agreement is definitely our primary focus, at least from the project perspective is concerned. And then lastly here on just kind of an overview, I know that there's been some questions on, the height of the turbine, different areas, different projects maybe have different turbines, different setback distances and whatnot. And wanted to follow up with just a little bit more detail about turbine size and other projects in the area with some kind of general thoughts layered into it all. So when you're looking at, really what a setback distance would be, being particularly pointed in this discussion to like a residence, you've got a setback distance that's meant to to remedy any sort of nuisance, right? I mean, that's the core of what it is. You need to say X amount of feedback because any type of a nuisance will be drastically reduced. So with that, when you look at other counties in the state of Iowa, you've got a wide range of different setbacks, with the largest being 1,600 feet from residences. Here in the development agreement, and what we have is a 1,500-foot setback. That again is the second highest of any sort of setback distance of any county or any project here in the state. But that really is meant to be a minimum. So that is exactly what it is. So that's a minimum level. Other counties, specifically looking to like a Kasuth County that has 100-foot larger turbine, they don't have a noise or flicker standard onto that. So you kind of start with a 1,500-foot setback, and then you really drill into this 50 dBA noise standard, which covers a specific aspect and is a very conservative standard. So you kind of start to layer on those protections. Do the same thing with the 30 hours per year of the flicker standard that we have, and those setbacks, in all reality, in the majority of the project area, will probably be the driving factor to move it above this 1,500-foot threshold. And so when you kind of take it with all of those aspects combined, you got something that actually tells the full story and actually provides those full suite of protections for folks. It's not just, hey, these might be larger turbines and we need a larger setback. So I think that doesn't tell the full story. So here in the development agreement, we definitely have that. And then just for reference as well, I know we talked about these 4.2 megawatt turbines for the project, and that's our base case assumption for what we have. If you look, and those are large by an output perspective. So they're forward facing, brand new, best in class technology for turbines for this category of wind speed and location. If you look at, for instance, like the Kasuth County project, the most recent one that was put in there, they utilized GE 2.8 megawatt turbines. So the output on those is lower. You're going to have more turbines for a given project output. And then what you have, though, is when you look at the actual specifications and heights of those turbines, they are not drastically shorter or not shorter, period, than the V150 4.2, which we would be looking at here. So you look at it, the GE 2.8 actually has anywhere from a 94 to 150 meter hub height, and compared to 105 meters for what we're looking here at Worthwhile. So you see that is actually very close, and in certain ways will not be, taller than the ones in that county. You look at the Turtle Creek project, which is another really good example, and near St. Ansgers, they use what's called a V136 turbine. It's a 3.5 megawatt turbine, so a little bit more power output. Again, those utilize hub heights of 82 meters to 149. So then compared with a 105 meter V150, when you come down to it, the V150 has a slightly larger, what we call a rotor diameter, just how large the blades are. And that is the difference. So looking at it, the 2.8 has a 132 meter rotor diameter. The V136 has a 136 meter rotor diameter, and then V150 is 150 as well. So they're all within a really close realm of size. And so I just thought that was really important to talk about, that it's not a direct correlation between height of a given turbine or output of a turbine in size. So when you kind of combine all of that, and then also knowing that these turbines continue to get quieter, V150 out of all three of those is the quietest of the turbines. So if in an example of Worthwhile getting built, just the technology that's there in Worthwhile at a baseline is quieter than what would be in Kasuth or St. Ansgers. I can send you some of the spec sheets for these as well, so you can kind of look at some of that stuff. But then just to fully close it off here, because really what I want is your input. You know, I just want to kind of have a discussion here, kind of hear where you all are at. I do think it's just important to remember and bring to light that as of now, you know, in these areas, there's not any sort of protection in place. You know, there's not necessarily these standards. So by signing this development agreement, you would immediately go from something that is, you know, has none of those protections to what would be really the most conservative set, when taking in its full account, set of project specific restrictions in Iowa. So when you kind of put that on a scale for where it is now, you know, there's a ton of benefits to being able to do this and kind of work through the process. And I really just would like to focus on that. And so as a closing point too, you know, just here to continue to refine this and just want to continue to have some discussions. The point of this in an ideal world would be kind of have some discussion and say, okay, you know, really when taken in a view of all of the counties in Iowa and projects around, this is a great perspective and a great combination of things for the project. And, you know, hopefully have some form of, you know, of approval of the development agreement, but also if not, you know, we can maybe talk about just some final nuanced things that would get us a little bit closer to that kind of final point there. But this is meant to be a discussion, and I just wanted to be here to kind of touch base because we haven't in a while and use that to set the table. So with that, I'll kind of stop talking and see if anybody has any comments here initially.
Send us those. You hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you. You want those spec sheets?
Email those specs to me, and I don't know whether you were too close to the owl or what, but I had a terrible time picking up everything you said. So send me
Oh
those.
no. Okay.
Did anybody else have a problem picking it up, or were you far enough away?
I heard him pretty good, yeah.
No.
I can say it again. I don't know if folks want to hear the thing, the spiel round two.
No, I don't want to hear round two.
I can get a little long-winded. Anyway, yeah, I'll definitely do that. I'll follow up here.
I have one question. Originally, when you came out with this agreement, you immediately put in the 1,500 feet from the residence, but then you put in a waiver by the owner of the residence, an easement or other written instrument, which is between the owner and you. Is there a minimum you'll go there? How close can this thing get to the house?
Yeah, so I mean, this would be all voluntary, right? So let's say right now, I mean, the majority of our project area signed up with, you know, with kind of an understanding of the same thing. Hey, we've got a setback distance that at the time was verbal. We're trying to work through here to put it in writing. But, you know, a large majority or a portion of the project participants don't necessarily care to a certain degree about residences from or setbacks from their given residence, especially if maybe it means you can kind of jockey around a couple turbine locations. Maybe they could get an extra one on some property that they have by doing that. You know, the minimum would be 1.1 times the tip height of the turbine. And so even if a landowner, property owner was willing to be able to say, hey, you know, this is my property, this isn't going to be impacting anybody else, you know, just from a project safety perspective, that would be the absolute minimum. Largely though, and you know, what you'll see is whenever we go through some form of kind of permitting process, I don't think we're going to be able to get anywhere close to that because we have this additional 50 decibel noise standard and flicker standard. So that's why this is such a comprehensive approach here. Whereas if you just said, okay, I've got 1,500 feet and we can waive it, you know, you don't have any other design standards that necessarily protect that individual person. Even if somebody said, okay, hey, I want to waive the 1,500 feet and come closer, we still have to make sure that that's within the 50 decibel noise standard and the flicker standard. And to be honest, we're not going to get anywhere close to 1.1 times the tip height with that. So there's a lot, that's why kind of having the three faceted approach here is very comprehensive and protective. And then there's a final note, that's only for people that it would impact just themselves. So nobody can say, I own this property and there's a residence that's close and waive a protection on somebody else. Those will always be in place for the project regardless. And again, even for the person waiving it, there'll be protections there as well. So maybe we can shrink it a tiny little bit, but it wouldn't be anything substantial.
Any questions?
No.
Hey, Mark, I got a question. So if we set this standards here at 1,500 feet, 50 decibels, what happens? I know the studies are there, but a lot of times you don't see actual facts until it's built and done on what the noise is and how it works. So what happens if the noise is over 50 decibels at that 1,500 feet? And what happens if the shadow flickers more than 30 hours per year? What happens if this stuff goes above and beyond what's in this agreement? Who's responsible and what's going to happen then, basically, with that turbine? So if that turbine's built and next to my house and it puts out 65 decibels and that's more than we stated, what's the thought there? What's going to happen?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I'll kind of cover it on a couple different areas here. We're trying to be we're trying to provide a lot of details and kind of paint a picture for how the process would move forward with this too. So whereas when we go through any type of permitting process, we're going to permit locations. So we're not going to have a blanket type of a process. We're going to have, these are our potential locations. This is our pre-construction study that shows that it's going to hit all of these standards and why. And then you'll see too, kind of as we prepare that and you get a chance to review it, those studies are very conservative because that in general would be a very, very poor outcome for the project and for this overall. So the studies are very conservative to start with to ensure that doesn't happen. So we do that from the beginning. We agree to do that, go through a process, and then you have stipulations on those given turbine locations. So after the fact, again, as part of this, we're required to go prove it, kind of put your money where your mouth is, make sure that those studies are accurate for the area and the operations. One, we would expect that those would come back that way. On noise first, and I'm going to kind of read something that I had put together as a response for kind of the exploratory zoning commission. There are these things where what we would do would be utilize to a greater degree noise to reduce operations. And so essentially, when you look at like a wind turbine, they generate electricity from aerodynamic lift, which is similar to to like an airplane wing. And so it's constantly adjusted or pitched to capture as much energy as possible. So that in part is kind of why you're starting to see more and more efficiencies for turbines overall, is those systems are beginning to get very high tech and able to adapt really on a moment's notice. So with that, there's also a noise reduced operation that under certain conditions where a turbine would be projected to get outside of those bounds, the turbine blade can be essentially forced to take a non-optimal pitch, to move in a way that takes a cut out of the output of that given turbine to make sure that any sort of wind or any sort of noise in that type of wind condition would be within the standards. So like peak turbine noise is perceived by people actually doesn't occur at the peak output or peak wind speeds, but really at kind of a critical speed when it's enough to generate and produce the maximum aerodynamic noise, but the speed the sound on the ground is not enough to obscure any sort of noise. And so we factor in kind of this peak type of issue in those models and have the ability to regulate that on the operational side. Because again, it's stipulation for the operation of the project. And then on the flicker side, flicker is very, it's more straightforward than noise, right? You know, the sun rises and you know, hopefully rises at a very predictable time each day. Throughout the year, it moves at a very predictable standard. And so whenever you model flicker, it's very, very, very accurate. Again, there'll be some buffer in there to make sure that it's not, but really kind of some of the local things for that would be any type of general obstruction, because at the end of the day, it's like a just shadow, you know. So if you can plant rows of trees, you can do things that might be you know, work for a particular participating or non-participating landowner there to get to an issue. But I think all of that, you know, is our tools that we would be able to do that. But again, kind of the point of going through the pre and post construction process is to make sure that that doesn't happen. But there are those things in place if it does, and that's how it should be.
Well, I guess technology or how the technology works. But the question is, if it doesn't work out the way it was designed and spec to, are you gonna tear the turbine down if you can't meet these standards? Or what is gonna happen? What are we gonna be on the hook for? We're entering into an agreement with you possibly that these are standards that we gotta stand behind as well. But if something changes, you know what I mean? What's gonna happen with that turbine that is not meeting these standards? Who's responsible? And is it gonna get tore down, or is it just gonna be, well, that's it?
I think at a very extreme end of it, if a given turbine cannot meet the standards, that would be an option, not the only option. I think that the main way to remedy that issue would be ensuring the operational side of it meets those standards. So we can reduce the operation of the turbine to meet that 50 decibel noise standard, and again, kind of take some bite out of it, if that will be the case. I think that again is an unlikely scenario, but that would be the first line of protection. There would be to change the way that it operates a little bit, make sure that it's programmed in a way to cut down on any sort of trailing noise in that gap of speed that creates an issue. So it'd be more of an update and change on the operational side of that turbine. I don't think that necessarily, you know, you build one and then it certainly will not go from 50 to like 65. You know, it would be the difference between like, okay, maybe one's 50 or 51, and shaving off that small percentage, but there's no way it's going to be missed by that great of a degree. And that's why we're doing those studies in the first place. But it would be an operational change to make sure that it sits in that window.
Well, I want to read this about 3 or 4 more times.
Okay.
Just because of the terminology, and I'm not an attorney to write these things, so I gotta think and double think about a lot of this stuff, but.
I got a couple questions, Mark. We'd already
Okay.
talked about this. I'd asked you how far away from Interstate 35 you're gonna be, and you said it was 1.5. And then I asked how far you're gonna stay away from all of our roads, and you said that would be 110%. I also asked you how far you're gonna stay away from a property line of a non-participating resident.
Mhm.
I know down at Kensett, they said they were gonna stay back 260 feet, but you said you were gonna look into that. Did you ever find that out?
So we would do 1.1 times the blade length, so that there's no type of overhang on any sort of neighboring property. It would likely be a little bit more than that, 260 foot number. Actually, I can tell you here. Give me 1 second. Oh, wait, let's see here. I'll have to do a little bit of a calculation and get that to you for what that would project to be for a V-150. It'll be right around that, that number. So it essentially stops from, would prevent any type of overhang on any sort of neighboring property. So the turbine and all its related facilities are only on participating property.
Gotcha. And you're gonna put all that stuff in this agreement? The
Yeah,
one,
if that is something that would continue to take a step to make you more comfortable with this, those are not issues for us to put in there. We definitely can.
well, I would think the more you put in there, the less problems we've got.
Yeah, I think to a certain extent, but I think those are reasonable, yeah, to be able to include. And that's a design standard that we have and are not. Again, I hope that through this process too, an overarching theme is that we're, we kind of have these standards, we'll put these standards in. And that's really what we've tried to do so far. And we can continue to kind of tweak that a little bit, so long as they stay in, in that realm of reasonableness, which this certainly is.
Gotcha. Well, like I said originally, I'm kind of waiting on what the zoning commission comes up with for all the information that they've got. I do have one question. You have a road and drainage easement, maintenance agreement, and development agreement between Worthwhile Wind and the Board of Supervisors of Worth County, Iowa. So this not only covers Silver Lake and Heartland, it also covers any place else that you have land agreements signed, like Kensett, Grove, East of Manly. This pretty much covers all those townships, right?
Yeah, I mean, this would cover, this covers the entirety of the project. So anywhere that there would be any type of facility, but all, our projects in between Lake Mills, Northwood, north of Elk Creek, south of the Minnesota border.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions? Okay, well, we're gonna push this on to our attorney, if he hasn't already seen it, weigh in on his opinion, and maybe like I said, I want to read it again a little more and get some other thoughts, or maybe questions or concerns with it.
Yeah.
But I'd like to discuss it with you again, hopefully for the next week or two, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was gonna say, what would you need from me? And just I can see if there's any questions in between, update some of the stuff in us that you wanted in there, and then we can kind of maybe continue to touch base every couple of weeks on this until we get to a point where, we're comfortable with it, because we do, there is some time and considerations here for the project. I'm not trying to force anything, but just in the back of our mind that, these do have somewhat of a timeline, and I think it would be, good to have these in place to guide how the project will be finalized here, especially too, we're going to be reaching out to some participating landowners to get their impact or get their feedback on where these would go. And so kind of having things to do that to where we can go with them with some a little bit more certainty over the next couple of months would be really beneficial. But
The more
that
things
work?
in this contract, like the minimum setback from a landowner that's not participating, and the setback from our gravel roads, our roads in Worth County, the more stuff you get in there, the better it makes it, because then there's not a question about it.
It will not raise a question in the future.
It's not gonna raise a question like what happened in the last Deer Creek.
Right.
So,
Okay. We'll add those into it, and we can see where, and then we can touch base here in a couple of weeks after we see if there's any additional thoughts. That's totally fine. It seemed like a good time to come back, have a discussion, because I do think there's been some really large strides that have happened here on the agreement. Just want to set it up here with the group as well.
give us 2-3 weeks. Here.
Okay. Sounds good. Give me a call if you need anything else. I'm here for questions and follow up if there is any. And, again, thanks for the time today.
All right, thank
See
you,
you,
Mark,
Mark.
appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right. Jeff Heil. See you sitting out there. Couple extra chairs. Sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Come on in, we got a chair there, a chair that way. Good.
Take the hot seat.
Just what Jeff likes, right?
I don't think I met you, Jeff Heil.
Ian Silver.
Please meet you.
Seen you sitting here before, I think before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
You were in.
Last fall sometime.
Yes.
Yeah, I looked at the
Yes.
video, I watched the video, so.
Were you here that?
I did not come up that time.
And you referenced all these sheets, but I didn't have the sheets in front of me, so it's hard to follow along.
Yes. That was an interesting conversation. I mean, it just took place here. Been involved in
That part of their office.
I mean, here.
No, you're good, Jeff. Yeah,
So yeah, I've been involved in a lot of wind projects. It's just interesting hearing what they put in on. So where are you at on the zoning recommendation board?
They're working on it. They've had 3 meetings. They're moving kind of, as far as I'm concerned, they're moving right along, so. But having never been on one, I don't know.
There's a lot involved. Okay,
All right, thanks.
yes,
Well, welcome, Jeff. How are you?
very good.
Good.
Very good. I guess, Heidi and I, we've got a lot of material, but I think more, I guess, what do you want to hear? Or where are you at? Where would you like to go? And where I could help you fill in the pieces to go somewhere or stop going somewhere, needing to know, I guess.
Well, as you know, we're in the middle of looking into a courthouse project
Yeah.
of some sort, whether it's renovate, start over. We're in that process now and we need to fund this project. And that's where we would like your advice on what's available, because we've got some roads we want to throw in with it too.
I was gonna
And
say you better start.
So
with
we're
all
roughly
five,
looking
probably.
anywhere, actually, to be honest, probably between, I'd say, total 25 to 30 million dollars when you're all said and done. Between roads, bridges, possible courthouse stuff. Maybe if you go, I'm just running rough numbers.
right,
You know, we know Rich
We know it's
proposed about
roughly-
14 million. The courthouse is gonna be anywhere from minimum of 10 to 15 or better.
Well, before we go there, we say we, like it's 15, 20, $30 million of projects. Where is the board as far as wanting to see? Are you wanting to, some boards take the approach of, hey, I want to take everything to the public. I want to get a 60% majority. We want to vote on it. Or a minority amount of counties are in a position that you are in that have TIF in place and wanting to use TIF without putting it directly on the property tax owners that way. So I mean, because we've got 2 different, I'll go into this to let you know where you are financially, but first of all is if there's a roadblock of saying, hey, I do not want to use TIF. If you don't want to use TIF, we can talk about how well you are and where you're going. But if you say, hey, I don't want to go that route, I want to have people vote and put it against their property taxes. So, we need to sort of know what direction leadership wants to take. And
I don't want to go the bond issue. I think we have the ability to use the TIF. I think it's a good tool if used properly. That's the direction I'd like to go. I think the other 2, I guess that's up to them. But
Amos, I'm AJ and Mark, I've talked with you several times, and I guess you're one of the newer members, not knowing, what thoughts and where.
I want the community to have input on it, but yet I'd like to use as much TIF as possible to pay for it. But I do want them to have input on it.
Sure.
As to what how maximum we go, whether we just do enough to get by or whatever. I want input from the community on it, which we're trying to get.
That's how we're working with our courthouse project, is trying to get as much community involvement in it as we can, so that they see what we're trying to do.
But yet I don't want to borrow TIF way down the road either. And that's where I'm sitting here with this sheet and going, what?
Is that the old one?
The old one.
Why don't you, Heidi, why don't you hand out, we sort of updated a little bit, they're pretty close to
Pretty
those.
close.
So, but just go ahead and get the new, book and with it.
Down that way.
Just a slight interruption where we have Representative Bloomfield here.
Oh.
Where are we standing on TIF backfill? I mean, that has something to do with how we would handle going forward with TIF. I mean, if we were to lose our backfill, we're gonna have to replace that with something. So where are we standing on that?
Backfill conversations you're probably hearing have to be commercial, not yet.
Okay,
At this point in
At that
time,
point.
right,
they're
okay.
also looking at 20-year sunset on
Yep.
TIF
And
projects.
we chatted on that. And I have no.
A little
issues
bit on
with
that.
yeah.
Most supervisors and mayors, et cetera, that I talked to, didn't really have a problem once they realized what a 20-year sunset was.
Yep.
Getting them to that point took a few minutes longer.
Right.
But, a lot of them don't have sunsets right now, but then don't get used. So the sunset doesn't hurt.
Okay, thank you.
That's the conversation at this point.
I just wanted to clarify that. Appreciate it.
And the backfill is on commercial and industrial, but our windmills are not in that backfill because of TIF.
They're tipped,
They're TIF.
right? Two different things.
Two different things,
Yeah.
yep, completely different things. So,
Well, let's just look real briefly, we'll just sort of look at where you are financially. Let's look at this debt. First of all, again, on page 2, we look at the valuation growth, that first upper corner, you're an average of 4.5%, which is, a little above, the average of all counties. You're more likely in about a 3.2 when you take all counties involved. So you're a little above growth. So that's, and partly is because of a lot of the wind turbines up here is you're gonna be above a lot of other counties. So that's sort of what that first page is. Second page, here's really, when you look at under the yellow portion, these are your outstanding TIF debts. We've got the 2012, 2014, 2015. And as you can see, we're gonna be paid off pretty quickly on a lot of these. 2012, goes out to 29, but they're small payments as they get there. As you go clear across, percent of our debt limit, right now in fiscal year 21, we're finishing, the green on the left, we got $56 million worth of capacity. We've got 9.1 out there. We're only using 16%. And as you can see, each year, we're going to be down to almost, so you're in a position that you've had debt, you've used TIF, but we're getting it paid off. And the other thing that we've talked with Jackie and Heidi, we've got numbers where you've got some TIF revenue in the balance where you could pay off a lot of this, or do you capitalize on some projects? Last one we was here last November, interest rates are still slow.
Right.
Do we, put in new debt at lower rates rather than pay off? That's something we can talk about down the road, but you are in a position with, you're over $3 million of balances now in TIF.
Right.
And with what we have outstanding in the next year's collection, we're not gonna have much left after that if we just used it all toward just paying it off.
Yep.
So this page sort of tells us, we have a lot of capacity, and it's, we're paying down pretty quickly.
One thing I would just note about it, this is a legal debt capacity. It's 5% of the 100% valuation.
Right.
It doesn't say you can afford the full, 5% of the 100% valuation. What it's saying is that's the legal thing we look at. The next thing we look at is, do you have the ability to pay it off and things like that? It's definitely not an affordability calculation. It's a legal, kind of a legal step that we look at.
And the pages all following is really just a combination of all the debts. I think we'll get more into the TIF and we can talk about it. Before we do page 4, these are all the debts. And you'll see that we're paying them all with TIF. The resources under the green, we have no debt service levy clear to the right. So your only revenue that we're paying on these debts is the TIF. And that's what Heidi talked about. Cash flow is in many counties without TIF, we're taxing it against the property taxes.
Right.
So in your case, we have, and we'll get to that TIF, we have plenty of cash flow with TIF revenue. And our debt's being paid off pretty quickly. Now it's deciding where we want to go in the future. Are we going to use some of this capacity? Or we want to shift some? Sometimes we do some of each.
Okay.
But you're in a position, I guess, when I'm saying low, you're going to be under 10% of your capacity, almost going down to 1 or 2%. And now we're going to let's talk about our TIF cash flow. The others are just, the rest of those pages are just the individual's debts. If you want to look at what the interest rates are and, specifically the debt payments. Unless anybody's got any questions on this debt though, before we do. Yeah, the following page is just 2014, 15, and 12 individual debt pages. So that's sort of, when you look at the big picture, now it's looking at what do we have capacity? And what we did in here, if you look about that fifth column, it says the new 78 towers or 76, the estimates. I got these in here that you don't have them amended in, but this is what would add in if we amended them. And we talked about that last fall. I'm not saying, hey, we've got to use it, but it makes sense as an insurance policy, in case things do change, that we have a broader collection base to make these payments rather than specifically. I don't recommend anywhere we use all of those, but we use the whole base as a protection. So when we look at it, that fifth, sixth column, combined TIF revenues. And we're at the horizontal line, right in the middle is where we're at now. We're at about $2.6 million of revenue. That's without the new turbines. Those are right now, we're collecting 2.6.
Okay.
And what we're using, our total debt that we're doing right now is 2.2 million that we're paying. So we're actually we got more revenue than our debt payments. So that's why our balances have been building up, and we can build those up, for the purpose of, we can only build up of how much debt we have out there so that we can have this pool to pay it off, or if we're going to amend to do new projects.
So Jeff, the remaining projects we're tiffing right now, what do we have, about 9 or 10 years left in those before they basically sunset?
Yes.
I guess we'd use that term.
Mm-hmm.
So, if we're looking at how we'd manage that with debt, you definitely need to cover with the new wind farms too. That's why you're saying bring them all in.
Right. I mean, let's just say let's say we want to use 100% of the old and then just have the new turbines as an insurance policy.
Okay.
And not really capture it, but so that we'd use this 2.6 million annually. And normally when we talked in the past, remember, I'd say, hey, somewhere between 50 and 75% let's use.
Yep.
But now that you've got this other as an insurance, we're still looking at not using the more than what the original projects were. I mean, that'd be one possible mission as a goal.
Okay.
So you've got the ability to amend these in And that doesn't mean, I just think it's a good conservative policy.
Right.
To do it. And there's pros and cons. And I know right now, one of the issues, your general funds are tighter, your rural funds are tighter. And I've been a county auditor. I look across county, city budgets. And as a rule, when when the auditor sends out valuation sheets, you send them out to all the taxing bodies, whatever the values are, they come in, use the 350 levy in your supplementals, and that's how you figure out how much money you spend, and you go. If you bring all of this value in from the wind turbines and put it over, all of a sudden it's up here. The first or second year may not happen. All of a sudden the budgets all fit in. Leaders always say, oh, we're not going to use it all, but all of a sudden there's a need. And here's where I see a potential problem, is these have 20-year lives. So we come in here, put all this value, and let's say we pay as we go through the supplemental, the rural fund, Rich is over here going through here, and all of a sudden solar or hydro or something comes in, and these wind turbines at their life, they're tearing them down. You take all of this hundreds of $1 million of value off, and your budgets are all back to, and you talk about a tough job for supervisors. Now, how are we going to cut in? Right now, you're having to control budgets with the value that's down here.
Right.
Are things tight? Yes, they are. But it's really an easy way of controlling costs because you don't have that value there.
And as we found out, it got tighter when the casino shut down too.
Absolutely.
So there are pros and cons. That's why if you want to do a stepped up approach and release some of this wind turbine to help the budgets a little bit,
Two would go on gunshot.
I mean,
But
but
you're in a position, real quickly, as you see how we're paying this off, you as a board have to make a decision here in the next year or two. I mean, I think you make a decision right away as far as mending in, but you have to make a decision what you're doing with all of these new values coming on, and plus what we're not using.
Right.
Are you going to shift it over to the taxation base or a percentage of it? Or do you do these projects that you're talking about, the roads, the courthouse, and fit these in now? While, and we could do, if you amend these in, you could easily do $25 million of projects comfortably and still be in a cash flow, very fiscally sound cash flow position. But you do have to start moving toward that. And
Because these numbers over here are what we have with these estimates that you've done. This is what's going to be available to us as we go through the
No,
year.
If you do nothing
If we
more,
if we do no roads, no nothing, this is what's available.
that's, yeah. So you looked at $41 million.
How come you don't go back here and clean this stuff up?
Well, that's in the
Are you
past.
paying interest on it or what?
No, that's already,
it's building.
building.
that, when it was negative, you're talking about?
Well,
Where?
the negative was you overdid it and you
No,
borrowed against.
so these actually, this is what built up the balances that's in you're holding that cash.
Right.
These right here, these excesses in the past, that's what Jackie has in the TIF fund now.
Right at the present time, you take the positives and the negatives, and that final figure is what she's got sitting there.
Yes. And well, partly, I'm just doing the wind turbines. You also have the Manly turbines, and the other that have built into that balance also.
Yeah.
So this, I'm just showing you all the wind turbines
Yep.
on here. This isn't counting the terminal.
Right.
That's sort of self-supplying sufficiency on its own, the same way at the casino, those kind of things, we're having those just on their own. We just want to show you what sort of the discussion on the winds turbine part. That makes sense?
Yeah. Yep.
So when you say, well, why don't we clean those up? Well, you're cleaning them up. You have the
It's in the
cash.
fund though.
It's in the cash. It's actual cash balances that you have available to either pay these 2014, 15, or 12 issues off, or we amend the plan with some of these other projects and we use those on a real urban renewal
And the
plan.
reason you haven't paid them off in the past is because interest rates are so cheap.
Not necessarily.
Why
No.
not?
Why haven't they paid?
Well, I mean,
Well, because partly the call date has not. See, what we do is on the bonds to get the rates they are, we have to hold them in a reserve fund. And so when the call date's available, the cash is there.
available.
That's why they haven't been paid, because our call dates have not been available.
So the one that you could pay off early right now is that 2012 that goes out the longest, has the longest term.
Right.
Yep.
That one could be paid off and have interest savings. Now, the 15 is still, the interest rates are still locked. And then that 14, you're paying that off this year. And that'll,
22.
yeah, this
That's
next
getting
coming
paid off
year.
now.
So when you look at that 2012, if you'd want to call that one off, you could save about 210,000 in interest if you called that off, right here in the next, 30, 60 days.
But then we utilize the cash to do the I-35 development. And you could do the same thing with Highway 105.
We could, yeah, use that cash, to pay for 105
Just what.
and not have to borrow anymore, but use the funds that we built up.
But
So
we
let's put
need,
it towards the rest of the 105 on the west side.
but we need to look whether, are those in the urban renewal plan now?
They need to get in.
We need to, because now with the urban renewal law, as the legislature did back 2 years ago, we have to be very specific, exact project and cost and get into the plan, amend it. So, as I talked with Jackie, it says, today, there's a lot of things we talk about, the courthouse and roads, all that, but today, you really need to take a direction of amending the plan for these specific projects you got coming up to make sure they're in there, and then also work toward amending the plan also of creating this foundation with the new 78 towers.
Okay.
So that's the real urgent thing we need to do. And because it takes 3 to 4 months to get all of these, the hearings you talk about wanting the public to know, we've got to have 2 public hearings. You got to let the other taxing bodies, the townships and the school know in the amendment process. And then if you're actually gonna, do a project, or we pay cash for these, or do you need to do a small amount of borrowing to finish some of these? Then we'll have another hearing process to the public to actually do financing, whether it's internal.
That's what I was wondering, if it was worth spending down the Highway 105, but then do we want to build it back up and borrow, because we've borrowed against it before. I don't know if we'd want to do that, or if you just want to have it gone.
Well, it's one of the things, none of us know the future. I mean, we've been fortunate for long-term borrowing, the interest rates that, in the 1% range, how long is that gonna stay? Whether you keep that cash and if you can borrow longer term. I mean, inflation is starting to get out of control. There's things that are shortages. We've printed more money by the Fed Reserve in the last year and a half than we have in the first 220 years of our country. To me, I mean, when I look at, I guess what I'm saying is how can we keep printing money and not all of a sudden have inflation?
It's coming.
I mean, if you're looking at a courthouse down the road or whatever, if you can start locking in your type of cash flow, you can pay off a courthouse in 15 years.
Right.
Easy. Do you lock something in under 2%, 1.5%, where rates are? I don't have a crystal ball, but when I look at all of the statistical data, it blows my mind because nothing makes sense right now. But I do know you can lock in long-term rates, 1.5%.
Question I got for you. I don't know, I don't think I've ever asked this before, but so if we tax roll and we take that chance, so in 20 years, they may disappear. They may be around for 40 years. We don't know.
Right,
Another thing, we can't see the future. Okay, so say 20 years, times have all changed, turbines disappear, now all of a sudden we're at a budget shortfall. Okay, so we TIF these for up to 20 years. What if they disappear in 10? Where does that money come, where does that TIF, where does that set us with TIF dollars at? So we've locked them in, we've committed to a 15-year
Mhm.
loan on this courthouse.
Yep.
Now we lose them in 10.
Yep.
Where's that, what happens to that 5 years?
That's why,
You're in trouble.
well, no, that's sort of why I say amend these others in. So if we were doing 100% and we ran into a problem, but now all of a sudden, if we amend all these others in and we still have a 50% cushion, we're gonna use up that cushion to make that, if part of those fell out.
Right.
So, but if you used all of it, the answer to your question is you would have to shift it over to property tax.
Yeah. So we'd
Directly,
be in that shortfall sooner is all.
yes.
So. We get it.
That's why,
Let's
you know,
just, yeah.
you're in a position where if you man these in, you're gonna have, I'll have to do the figure of what percent cushion that we still would have. We can run the numbers, but that's why I would comfortably keep you in that 50-60% range totally, rather than going up because of the concern of what you're asking is I don't want to see you in that position.
Well, we regardless, we could end up in that position no matter which way we go, whether we tax roll them or whether we TIF them. We could still end up in that position.
And the other,
That can be with anything, that can be, you know.
Right,
seen it
yeah.
disappear.
I know,
But
that's,
here-
that's, yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
I
that's
know.
but the
It would
other,
just make a difference in how big of a project we do.
Well, yeah.
but the flip side is these first ones they're 20-year life, sort of like the legislature talked about putting 20-year cap. On these are all 20-year turbine renewal. We're not in the pre-95 where we got continue to go on and on. We have a 20-year cap on
Right.
these. So these ones that we started back in 2008, in 2028, 29, that value is going to start going to your rural fund and your general fund. Those are automatically going. So you're going to, at the same time, if you add these in, your general,
Fund's gonna grow.
if the wind companies repower these and they keep them going, that TIF's gonna go off on those. You're gonna start collecting on the balance of these 10 years plus the new, we're gonna have that cushion, and you're actually gonna have increased growth for your regular funds in the way that it's going right now. But you're right, if something comes and they wipe out the turbines as a worst case scenario.
Right. Well, I just, that's what concerns me is no matter which direction we go, we could still be in that position.
Well, I guess what I want to make a point today is, and we'll run some numbers for you, you get projects, but I don't want Worth County to get overextended at all. And so if you've got projects between the courthouse and roads and we come up with that number and we still leave you, somewhere, say, you're only using 60% and leaving a 40% cushion. That's gonna sort of leave, take some of that worry off. Is it 100%? No, but it's a high percentage of likelihood of being in still a very sound position. Right now, you just have to decide because you are in an extremely well cash flow position. You just got to know whether you're going to shift that to the regular taxation funds or you're going to pay for these capital projects. Some of them you've got to make a decision on some of them because some of these projects are coming at you. If you're not going to use TIF, you're going to be forced to take bond issues to a voter. I mean, this courthouse. I mean, I go around the state. This courthouse needs work. I mean, I compare it around. I mean, it's a fact. I mean, it ain't gonna last forever. I mean, it's lasts a long time. You either gotta fix on it, do a major, or something new. You're the one that's got to decide that, but you can only kick that can down the road so long. Because if your board doesn't take care of one of the boards down the road, is going to be forced to.
Well, that's kind of where we're at.
But you're in a position
I
now
like what they're-
to use it and not have any debt service levy. A high percentage of boards don't have that
And there's another
gift.
And there's another project possibility behind this.
So I guess today is, I just wanted to say, hey, financially, you're in a very conservative, good position. You're able to, you just need to get us more specifics on when, the timing and the amount of these, and then we'll come up with a very conservative cash flow with that for you.
Right.
But we sort of need direction of
Yeah.
when on some of these projects, but I think you need to start sooner than later on the amendments, first of all. And then, Rich, I don't know, you looked at the roads, or those?
Yeah, he's got
I've
it.
got, in my 5-year plan, I'm showing what the need is for the next 5 years on supplementing farm to market and swap money. We do have a need right now for 105. We got a contract.
That's
for that. We got a
immediate.
contract.
What's that roughly?
What was that?
3.7,
3.8, something like that.
Yep.
And so we got a contractor, he's on board. We're gonna start in July.
We gotta get that one done.
And we were gonna take 1.7 million out of the trust fund and then 2 to TIF, but it depends on how you wanna do that.
But if you're doing that in July, I mean, you need to start that amendment so that we know, make sure that's in there.
I just really use tip, the trust fund alone.
Well, we're gonna have to use both.
Right away.
Because there's not
Oh, and
that,
replenish it.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah,
to
that's
replenish
what I
it down
was-
the road.
Do an interfund
Yeah.
loan or whatever you call it, so.
but you gotta do the same, all the legal things, whether you do an interfund loan or we go to the bond market. We gotta do all of the amendments and the hearings, the public, either way, even if you do internal, you just can't say, hey, today we're gonna do a transfer. You've gotta go back to the public and do.
Does that
all-
work with the 105 trust fund, being that money was initially set up for 105 to begin with? I mean, that was a,
So, what you're saying.
Well, I'm just talking about the 3 million of the TIF, not the
Okay.
105 trust fund. That doesn't need to be.
That was just if if we were
Gonna
gonna
supplement.
do an interfund loan and then pay back with the TIF
Yes.
to get it replenished again,
What's in that 105 trust fund?
like 1.7.
Oh, you're using all of it.
Yeah,
well, they will, yeah, we'll have to
Get it done.
make payments.
Gotcha.
And then.
Because when they come in here, the money's gonna go fast.
Right.
I mean, that's probably, I mean, it's a multi-week project, but when they start putting paving down, that'll be a 2-week ordeal and they'll be out of here. And that's when the bulk of the money gets spit out.
Just that why you're speaking fast.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I mean, what, did I sort of cover what you
Yeah,
wanted
yeah,
to
no.
do?
We wanna know where we're standing because that's what the public wants to know, who's paying for the courthouse. You know,
Yeah, no,
Always
and,
think those
I mean,
words.
I guess what I say, you have that ability. You know, to do a courthouse. Courthouses have been, you know, depending on who you work, I mean, it all boils down to bond attorney getting the opinion and proving that it's economic development, but they have been done in the past. But you've got to go through, opinions change. And these are always opinions of attorneys and they change daily. I shouldn't say daily, but I mean, they can change. And so it's as we go in this time in history as where the administrative rules are at the state yet. And so we have to look at those and do it. So, but if you are wanting the courthouse, it's something that, you know, as we do the amendment to the 78 towers, we're talking about the amendment, first of all, to do this road project. But I think you should also be looking at this amendment of this 25 million of all of these projects. Get them out there to the public when you're holding the amendment. Here's what, that doesn't mean we're gonna do them because we're not holding financing. We're just holding what we want. And when we amend these 78 towers, do you want the courthouse in there? Do you want whatever these specific roads? Are there any other economic development projects in the county that need to be done? But you put them out there and you put dollar amounts and you say, hey, here's what we have as a plan. Then when the time comes, it might be a year or two later, you might do that, or you might never do that project. But
It's in there.
it's in there.
Capabilities there, and that's what we need to have that option.
So I guess I want to share you today, when you look at what's being paid off, it's coming at you it's paid off. You gotta make a decision. Because we're gonna be close in about 3 years with what we're collecting. You've gotta stop collecting TIF because we don't have any more debt certified. You can only collect what you have certified debt out there. And we've got to be watching real closely in about 2.5 years from now, even though we got this fund balance already collected. And if we pay this off, you will be over collecting on the TIF that you don't have certification for. So this isn't something you can kick down the road. You got to stop collecting TIF revenue, or you got to go to the public and say, these are our future plans and we're going to proceed with some certification, internally loan or external loan, because it's coming at you soon. And that's a good problem.
Yeah, right.
It really is. So
One other thing I noticed, so you're looking at doing 2 amendments, one to the plan that includes all the projects, and then also the area that includes the 78 turbines. The way that revenue is collected, that it collects in the first year, it collects the 0%, and then it does the 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and up to 30%, and 30 for the remainder of the 20. In order to collect that first 5%, you need to get that in the area soon, so it can be put in the area and certified to collect that 5% by December 1st of this year. Because right now you're currently in that 0% year. So this is all kind of coming together. You've got some projects coming. You've got your 5% year coming up for fiscal 2023. So it's time to get a lot of these the ideas and the projects that the boards want to do, and then these other 78, get those in the area so TIP can be collected on those. Do you have to collect the TIP on it? No, you do not, but you do want to make sure you get those in the area so you can have the ability to have that step up of the 5, 10, 15.
if you don't, you lose it. You can't go back and capture it after it's gone.
If you don't get that 5% this year and you wait till next year, you would cap at 25%.
Well, and what starts the time clock? Because didn't something have to be filed?
Well, the time starts when you file debt.
No, but I mean, the wind turbines, doesn't something have to be filed with the wind turbine?
Yes,
Yeah.
That process will all take place, but when we talk about your part is amending the plan and then certifying debt. Certifying debt is what starts. You can have the plan, you could put the plan in this year and not start the time clock till 5 years from now.
Okay.
But if you
We
wait
just
5
have to
years,
show that it's spent.
if you don't start it, but you lose everything in the value that's hangs on the clock up to that 5 years. So that's why you want to file the debt. That's what triggers the 20 year is once you collect in certified debt. That's a lot of detail. I think on the big picture today is, you look at these, take them home, look at it, and study that. You're in a good position. You need to get to me more specific and some more timelines you want on some of these projects, and we can put some specific details.
I could bury you guys in projects.
I was just gonna say, you could put the
We all-
105 East project on there.
I think
That would take a chunk of
Well,
I
I
think
mean,
every
that should
office
be
could
part
do
of the
that,
5
too.
years.
That's gotta be on part of the 5-year plan. It's just,
It is,
it is on there,
That's
yeah.
what I thought.
but it's a matter of moving stuff around in the program, and we can do that. It just takes hearings and things like that.
Right.
But, there's more than just those roads out there that aren't programmed yet that we're gonna be cycling around from 20 years, 15 years ago that are gonna
Ones
need
that are
to be
already
touched again.
I mean, we can make several.
Well, I think you answered a lot of our questions, Jeff. I mean, Enos kind of Mark and I have been through this and kind of got the gist of it. And I learn every time I talk to you.
Yep.
I do. Every time I look at this, I gain more knowledge, and that's what we told Enos. The more you deal with it, the more you'll understand it, I guess. So yeah, the ball's in our court. We just gotta update our plan, and I think we're prepared to with 105 coming and get this other stuff available, I guess, to then make our decisions later. So, but
yeah, if you're doing the 105 project, it's July 1. We're middle of May.
Yeah, we gotta go. We know we gotta go.
And we can't, by law, I mean, you have technically 60 days that you got some, the law allows you to go back only 60 days. Say on this project starts, so you start paying, say you're paying some costs, July 1. Well, technically, you know, I'd rather not have you use the 60 day, and just get your amendment done so that you don't have to worry about.
Yeah, we need to do that right now.
You can't go backwards. You gotta let the public know the project's in there. And you're trying to do it after the fact, after you pay on contracts. I don't recommend it at all.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time.
Yes.
We appreciate it.
You know, if you want to start, you know, I can help you with Dorsey to get going on the amendment. But, you know, we need to look at it, make sure what's in there and what's not in there. Add specifically on that part, and then we can start, once you do that one, then we can start the amendment for 78 towers. Okay? Good. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jake.
Thanks, Jeff.
Appreciate it.
You made it more understandable.
So it's like, you control, if you're borrowing, you control whether that 10-year puts you in a hole or not. If you throw it all in rural basic, you don't have any control anymore.
Right.
But feel free to call anytime. I mean,
I got your number right there.
everybody, you know, the board of members, I've talked one-on-one. Sometimes it's easier just, you know, do a phone call, and as you're getting through it, give me a call.
So we don't know what
Okay.
exactly.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
And I still say it should be necessary.
Thank you.
Replacement tax, not getting enough.
I think we're just gonna
You don't think so?
go forth on the supervisor weekly reports. We can discuss 2 weeks worth next week. I want to see the safety meeting get done before our FEH meeting.
What?
We're gonna skip supervisor weekly reports for this
Okay.
week. Mark, we're gonna skip supervisor weekly reports. I want to see you guys get your safety meeting done so we can get our FEH going too, so. Anything else we gotta put on for next week? I think we're up covered, aren't we?
And you're all up to date on all this information that came out about the duns and the
I'm
sand.
working on it. I'm still
What a
trying to get-
nightmare.
it is a nightmare, and it's taken a lot of time.
As you can see, I went through, literally had to mark stuff in
I've
there.
been going in circles between Dunn's and Sam, and it's a mess.
And without it, we're up a creek. We don't get nothing.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you at 10:30 or 10:45-ish, whatever, for FEH.
Oh, I guess.